All righty, boys and girls, welcome back to a long-awaited dual-hosted episode of the Red, White, Claret, and Blue Show. Your triumphant king has returned. I am Alex Baquero, and because there is no good football for him to watch in the Villasphere, he is Christopher, Mr. MLS Condit, your American villain voices, as always, serving up the lukewarmiest of lukewarm opinions. I'm not going to let sleep deprivation prevent me from bringing the most mild takes to you, our dear listeners. I'm not going to go crazy due to my lack of sleep, at least not crazy when it comes to the Villa, or I don't know, maybe I will. Chris, you're going to need to let me know at the end if I'm my usual self. Everyone, please go follow, like, rate, review, subscribe, all the places below our faces. Oh, that rhymed. I should use that more often.
There you go.
The kid is still got it. Chris, how are you?
I'm doing great. Yeah, we're doing good over here. It's a good day for America, beating Canada in men's hockey as well as beating them in women's hockey a couple of days ago. So beat them at their own game. Suck on that, Canada, USA. But other than that, I don't really want to talk much soccer. Which is pretty unfortunate because we're on a soccer podcast. So this could get a little strained and awkward. How are you, Alex, as a new father?
I'm really depressed that the Winter Olympics are ending. I love the Winter Olympics. And I was talking about this with Katie today. She also loves the Winter Olympics. Any random event in the Winter Olympics, I'm game for. Ski until you fall down and then shoot a gun, absolutely, sign me up. All the figure skating, sign me up. All the different ski aerials. I didn't know that ski aerial was actually a discipline that you could compete in. I thought that all the freestyle was just like slope style, big air, all that kind of stuff. But no, there's one where you go down a hill and you go off one jump with your arms just straight as high in the air as you can and just try and helicopter yourself. Super cool. I'm here for it. I watched a bunch of women ski 50 kilometers. That's 31 miles, Chris. That's longer than a marathon today. Was riveted every second of it. During the Summer Olympics, do I watch equestrian or ribbon dancing or watch the marathon? Absolutely not. I don't know why, but the winter sports are cooler. It's just cooler. Ha, pun. They're better, they're more entertaining, and I'm really sad. I thought the Milan Olympics were fantastic. Great job to Milan and Livigno up there in the mountain. So yeah, very sad that ended. It also is what got us through won't say on the podcast how long, but a long delivery and post delivery in the hospital. Super convenient to just be able to say, not actually say anything of what do you want to watch? What do you want to keep you through this round of contraction? It's just like, you know what? The Olympics are on. It's going to be new. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be entertaining. And so we just had that on 24/7. So, yeah. Podcast over?
Podcast over. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Up the Villa.
Okay. Unfortunately, from the highest highs of the Winter Olympics to the lowest lows that is Aston Villa's current form, let's talk about Leeds. Chris, tactical setup and approach. Mings in over Pau, Ian Maatson in over Luka Dean. I think that one was coming. Leon Bailey on for Jadon Sancho, and Ollie Watkins continues up top in very frustrating form. We'll get to Ollie Watkins in a second, Chris, but actually, first off, I want to ask you about Mings versus Pau. Why do you think this happened against Leeds? Mings has now been preferred in, I think, the past 3 league games, if I'm not mistaken. Not like that's going all that well for Aston Villa. So do you think it's the right call? And why do you think Unai is turning to Mings in these situations?
I think that's the big head scratcher right now among everybody in the Villaverse, because it seems like everybody's asking the question. And I said in the solo pod preview that I thought it'd be back to Pau now. We've seen Mings for a handful of games, and now I think it's time to go back to, I mean, we call him the security blanket because he's the guy that Unai Emery would always trust. He's the guy that Emi Martinez trusts most to bring the ball out of the back. So you take him off and you take away a very significant portion of how Aston Villa build the attack. And couple that with the fact that you have injuries to Boubacar Kamara and Yuri Tielemans and John McGinn. And now if you consider that, you're taking away a huge section of the pitch where you normally work the ball from Martinez to Pau to Kamara or to Tielemans, who then try and find a pass forward. And so I think that's part of the reason you're seeing the struggles in form, and part of the reason that you see that teams can effectively press much more easily than they did during Villa's good run of form, because you don't have the same players that are so adept at carrying the ball forward as we try to build out of the back. I can't answer why Pau Torres is getting the cold shoulder right now from Emery. It doesn't make sense to me. You and I have always rated Pau extremely highly, and I think that his ability, particularly as a ball carrying or passing center back, is sorely missed out there right now in a time where Villa can't afford to be shaky at the back, and without him out there, they're shaky.
Yeah, so I think there's two reasons why Unai is turning to Mings here. One of which I'm actually going to save for one of our cold waters towards the end. So I'll talk about the former. And that reason is simply just that Dominic Calvert-Lewin is a physical striker, I guess. Like that is literally the only explanation I can come up with, because you made all the other points that I was going to, and that is that for a team like Aston Villa, like Unai Emery, who want to play out of the back, and when you're playing a team like Leeds, who very clearly were going to press in spots, but outside of that, get everyone back behind the ball, be very organized and compact in defense, you need to essentially do what you astutely pointed out during the Arsenal game. Sit on the ball, draw them out, and then create the opportunity to ultimately play through them. And that just simply isn't Tyrone Mings's game. If Tyrone Mings had Kamara and Yuri Tielemans in front of him, two very strong ball playing center midfielders, then maybe you can kind of hide that a little bit or carry him in that respect. But you know, Amadou Onana definitely in there more for his physicality. He can dribble pretty well and he can find a pass, but I don't think that his passing range is to the extent of Yuri or Kamara. And then Douglas Luiz maybe could do that back in the day, but like he's been back for 3 games, right? He doesn't necessarily have that that understanding with the rest of his teammates further up the pitch. So like you need Pau to start that offense, to be able to draw people out, to be able to find those line breaking passes that are so key to Villa being able to get running at a defense with pace, with numbers, all that kind of stuff. When you have Tyrone Mings in there, you know, the back line can't do it. The center midfielders can't do it. So you're trying to play out of the back, trying to draw these teams in, and yet basically between Emi Martinez to Morgan Rogers, there's no one really to pick up and play the ball to anyone.
Yeah.
So, you know, it severely hamstrings what Villa can do offensively. And I think you're seeing the result of that in the lack of opportunities that Villa are creating.
Well, I will say that by XG, I didn't look at XG philosophy, but I looked at footy stats, and Villa's XG was actually higher than Leeds, which surprised me.
That surprised me as well with all the chances.
1.81 to 1.41. Yeah. But
Okay.
you got to remember, Villa did have a couple of very big chances that went unanswered or unscored, whatever. Yeah. And the other thing, though, that I was a little bit worried about with Mings, and one of the reasons that I was suggesting, and I'm sure you did not listen to the solo pod, but when I did the solo pod, I suggested Pau, in part because Leeds were going to attempt a lot of long balls forward, and I thought Pau's recovery speed is better than that of Tyrone Mings. So Mings has the height, but in the event that we're on 6s and 7s and a ball's played over the top, I trust Pau Torres much more so than Mings to recover and be able to make that play. And boy, did Villa look susceptible to the long ball forward for a good chunk of that game on Saturday.
I'm not even sure it's speed. I think it's his reading of his positioning and his reading of the field and the game that just exceeds Tyrone Mings. Because I'm not saying you're wrong that he's pacier, but I think the thing that I would point to is like there was a one of the Leeds breaks in the first halves, and I'm sorry, I don't have the exact minute written down. Tyrone Mings just goes flying into midfield to try and win a header, gets bullied off of it, and all of a sudden, they've got like 3-on-1 going the other way. I think it was one of the Calvert-Lewin chances that he kind of wound up 1-on-1 and missed. And Mings is liable to do that. We call it the Mings mistake in our group chat every single time, where he acts like when you're playing FIFA and you switch on to a guy inadvertently, and so he just like runs 5 yards in the opposite direction of what you need. Tyrone Mings has a couple of those a game, and that was one. I think Pau is just more able to hold his position there and kind of read and play the offside trap and all that kind of stuff. But Chris, you talked about the opportunities that Villa missed. Can't talk about those without talking about a one Sir Oliver Watkins, who continues to struggle, who, when we brought Tammy Abraham in, you and I talked about how he has honestly been mentally weak in the past when there's been another striker breathing down his neck. See Tammy Abraham score both on and off side. So over the past few games, and he had to have been feeling the pressure. And my God, I mean, this was the pinnacle of frustrating Ollie Watkins. You look at the 44th minute, 1-on-1 with the goalie totally open, basically passes to him. Has the opportunity in the 45th where he just doesn't react to it after an amazing save off of I think Amadou Onana had the first go at it off a beautiful cross by Douglas Luiz. Doesn't react to that the way that you want your striker to. And then in the second half, I think the most egregious one, and you texted me a string of expletives when he did this. The one that he actually put in the net, to not get back on sides on that one, it to me was criminal. The lack of effort in that one, it wasn't like it caught him by surprise. You knew where the ball was going. You knew what was going to happen there. To not just get that extra foot back on sides, I was so done with him at that point.
So, I mean, you and I did make I was going to say make the jokes, but I don't think they were jokes. We did talk about the fact that when Abraham got brought on, what would that do with Ollie Watkins? And Watkins didn't do himself any favors here. Like in terms of dispelling that idea that he shrinks when there's somebody behind him that is capable, because that may have been his worst game of the season, and that's saying something given the way he started the season. I am honestly right now, and I know we're supposed to be like the lukewarm takes, but right now I'd start Tammy Abraham until I have a reason not to, because you can't have that. And I think if we were to like break down by XG Villa's chances, I think Ollie Watkins is probably responsible for about a full one goal of that 1.81, if not more. I thought the one where he was 1v1 on the keeper was terrible. He kicked it so weakly that was never going to get past anybody. And I don't know if the ball got trapped under his foot a little bit or what it was, because he did not look comfortable at all taking that shot. The offside one, I agree with you, was the worst, because that should have been a goal. Who knows how things go after that? You have more time then to get the second, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I was disappointed, and I know we'll get to this later on, that it took so long. Well, they didn't even ever take him off, that it took so long to get Abraham out there when you clearly needed something more from your number 9. And I say that as a guy who has been praising Ollie Watkins for 3 years now. But we've said multiple times on this podcast now, you can't succeed in the long term if you don't get production from your number 9. And right now, in this run of form, Villa are getting no production from their number 9.
Yeah, you put it well. So let's dive into the rest of the match, I suppose. Just want to note, Villa lost 3 of 5 at Villa Park going into this match, and now they've only won 2 of 6. those 2 wins are Red Bull Salzburg, who crashed out of the Europa League, and Brighton, where we won by own goal. Not a good run for what used to be Fortress Villa Park. Chris, first 15 minutes, I think it became very clear how this game was going to go. And so we can hit some key points after that, but I think the tactical assessment is essentially this. Leeds were willing to press in spots when they lost the ball high up the pitch and knew that they could create some turnovers with Villa's backline. But more often than not, they worked incredibly hard to get back, get composed, get organized in their 5-3-2, challenged Villa to break them down. Villa could not do that. And when they turned them over, they figured out how to break quickly in behind the Villa back line. Villa really had no answer for either one of these. It was yet another game where Villa had boatloads of possession for a majority of it. And yet every time the ball was going the other way, the opponent looked way more dangerous than Villa did with, 60, 70% of the ball.
Yep. I agree. And I think we already talked about the biggest reason for Villa's struggles, at least in part, is due to the fact that we didn't have Pau Torres out there. So I know we're going to talk more about that later, but that is the start. Because if you compare this game, and you already did what I was going to do, where you compare this to the Arsenal game, like there's no reason that you can't execute that same sort of game plan, except the fact that you've got some injuries across the midfield, and I understand that, but you can still attempt the same sort of game plan, where if they're not going to come out, then you force them to come out. You stand on it and just wait. That'll be fine, And they if they want to take a point, they'll take a point there, and eventually you'll have to try and break them down. But you have to do your best to try to draw them out, because that's going to create those spaces in the middle that we talked about in the Arsenal game. The other problem, though, and I was kind of surprised by this, only because we had Leon Bailey out there, and he's so good at keeping his feet on the sideline, on the touchline, I should say. Villa played so narrowly and in such small pockets of space that they were very easy to defend. And again, that made it difficult for Aston Villa to break down, because you've got guys, you've got, in some situations, you had 3 to 4 guys all inside of about a 5 square or 8 square yard area. And that's way too easy to break down and defend, because you don't have to do anything with them. Eventually they're going to have to do something with the ball. Like one of those 4 guys standing in about, the same area is going to have to do something with the ball. So one of your 10 defenders can deal with that. And you're essentially allowing 2 men to be marked by 1 guy at the same time at best. So that, I think you couple all those things together, and you can see why this game was such a slog for Aston Villa.
Yeah, I've been banging on about width all season long, right? And in the 27th minute, I noticed that all 10 Villa players were essentially within the width of the D on the top of the Leeds box. Like, what is that wide? 20 yards, maybe? Yeah. All 10 players between there and the halfway line. I think part of the reason for this, honestly, was 1, Villa's own ineptitude, but 2, Leeds tactics. So the way that Villa generate a lot of width nowadays is with Matty Cash and Ian Maatson high up the pitch, right? They use those fullbacks almost like wingbacks when they have that kind of tactical dominance. They look for those triangles getting to the byline, or create those opportunities where someone steps out and then you can have an Emi Buendia driving into the middle, get that like left-footed shot that he had that went off the post. The reason why Villa weren't able to do that is because Leeds were so effective counterattacking. Every time they turned the ball over, they were looking down the wings over the top. Brendan Aronson on the left, I believe. I forget who they had on the right, running in behind our defense. And so that created a little bit of tentativeness, I suppose, in Ian Maatson and Matty Cash to go forward, because they knew they were so exposed behind. And when that gets taken away, you need to have another way to play. And it just seemed like Unai Emery did not.
Yeah, I agree that it was it was a very frustrating game, and like I said, when I think the bigger thing that I don't want to hammer it home, but the bigger thing is that Villa did create a couple of pretty big chances that just didn't score and didn't frankly come close. Onana's goal almost went in, and that was a fantastic save, but it's literally the thing that you hope happens, right? Like it falls right to your feet. I don't want. We already talked about it, but I can't. It went right to the feet of Ollie Watkins, and he just stood there with it, like he was surprised that the ball came to him. So I don't. I mean, I just I don't
I hate
understand.
to say it, Chris, but like I know he's misapplied the theory of the law of large numbers, but like overall XG philosophy's premise is right. You're going to score a bunch of goals that don't necessarily have XG. At some point in the year, you're going to miss some goals that have a very high XG, and ultimately you'll score about what you're expected to. And I think Villa are unfortunately on the downside of that coin right now.
Yeah. Well, I just so I think that like if we're going to talk about like the other stuff that went poorly, I guess we might as well talk about the Leeds goal at this point, right? So it was a great strike. I'm not going to deny that. And it may have gone in anyway, but I don't think there's any disagreement that Emi Martinez left half that goal open. And I can't figure out why. He just assumed the cross was coming and made it easier. I'm not going to say it's easy because it's not, but made it easier to put that one in from distance.
He way overplayed the cross. I think that's 100% on Emi Martinez, and unfortunately continues a worrying trend with him this year where, much like the Mings mistake, we're kind of starting to see a Martinez mistake creep into a number of games now, whether it's spilling saves into dangerous areas, something that he never did before, obviously overplaying this cross, getting bodied and looking for the foul too often in certain games. There are more and more opportunities where he used to make the right decision and be strong in whatever every single time. And he's not old in goalkeeper years, but it does feel like the age is starting to show a little bit with him.
I mean, we'll see. That was a clear mental mistake, though, because he very nearly got to that anyway. So it makes you think that he could have had it had he positioned himself better.
Yep. We talked about this game being a slog. When we turn to the second half, I mean, Chris, there's not a lot to talk about here. Leeds dared Villa to break them down, and once again, Villa couldn't do it. It was huff puff and really no kind of end product until the 87th minute, when there's a great corner, excellent win by Ezri Konsa, and Tammy, with the instinctive finish that you want of your striker, knees it top bins.
Hey, I thought it was great from Tammy. Like I thought it was fantastic.
So, Chris, good points here. I think a lot of the stuff about the second half we're going to talk in a series of cold waters next. So we'll kind of jump to good points, bad points. The cold waters are all in bad points. The good point, I don't know. We got a point, I suppose. Chelsea doesn't gain 1 point of ground on us. We're going to kind of need every single one as the end of the year comes to a close. It seems like. Did you have any others?
No, I mean, the good point is you got a point when you played terribly. Could there have been could Villa have come away with 3 points potentially? Could Leeds have also come away with 3 points? Yes. So you got a point when you didn't play particularly well for large stretches of the game. I'll take that as a positive. Yeah.
Yep. So, Chris, I think a number of bad points are probably takes that we've seen around social media. So let's bring back a old segment, cold water. We're going to see if these takes are too hot, if we're dousing them in cold water to bring them to an appropriate lukewarm temperature. Chris, first one here as a bad point of this game. Unai got pretty much everything wrong today. Subs took too long. Powell should have started. We said that earlier. Tammy should have started. Tactics were exploited by Leeds. You can't point to anything in that game that he did right as manager.
I mean, I have to pour some cold water on it, I guess, because we did end up with a point. But yeah, I agree with all those things. The subs took too long to come in. Pau should have started. We already talked about that. I already told you that I'm Team Tammy for until I have a reason not to be. And you already did a good breakdown on how Leeds were able to exploit Aston Villa's tactics. So it's difficult to disagree with that and pour cold water on it.
Yeah, the lack of a plan B is really starting to frustrate me. It actually it leads into our next cold water, so I'm gonna put a pin in that for a second. I can't really say anything that Unai Emery got right in this one. Starting Leon Bailey was wrong. He looked atrocious, and you know how much I love Leon Bailey. Buendia had that one opportunity with the left peg, didn't really work out. It seems like we're really struggling to find an alternative to really rotate in and out with him in that left wing position. It just feels like there isn't really much of a desire to chop, change, move things around. And it does, outside of this game, then bring into question the decision to let some of the young players leave on loan. Jimo Loba, for example, like, could you not throw him in there at left wing for a couple games to give Buendia a spell, just to give a little bit of a different look? He looked electric when he came on. So, I don't know, but I definitely am not giving Unai Emery passing marks as a manager in this one against Leeds. Now, Chris, where I was going to go with that last one, lack of plan B and how frustrating these past few games have been. Second cold water take. Past 10 games or so, Villa look a lot closer to the first four where they couldn't score than during their winning run. They've been found out.
I mean, I think that's somewhat objectively true. The only reason that I'll pour some cold water on it is the injuries are significant. You know, you're missing three absolute monster players in McGinn, Kamara, and Tielemans for a variety of reasons. Each of those guys is a major factor on Villa's team, and to lose all three of them at once is difficult. However, no excuse culture, right? You got to move on. So yes, like there's no, I don't think there's any argument that Villa have not looked good for the last 7 to 10 games, and look closer to the first four where they're not scoring. I mean, it took an own goal to beat Brighton. So yeah, I pour a little cold water only because we're missing so many, key players in pretty much the same area of the pitch, but no excuse culture. So yes, I agree with that. Not a whole lot of cold water for me.
Yeah, I don't pour a lot of cold water on it either, because I think that, sure, you lose those three guys, you got to switch up the system to find something that works for the guys that you have. Like, I don't know. It just, it feels like the definition of insanity to it seems like we come back to every single year on this podcast of doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results. The team's too narrow. There are too few different ideas. It is too reliant on moments of magic, Steven Gerrard style. Let's just watch Morgan Rogers beat two guys and bang in a long range stunner. It's too easy to defend. And you're right. Own goal against Brighton. It took coming back from 2 down against Salzburg, or coming back twice, right, to win that game. Those are the 2 wins that we've had recently. And in the ones where you lose, like, you don't look in it at all. Now Villa were undefeated. They were winning every game when they scored first. They can't see games out anymore. It just it really looks a team a lot more like those first 5 games. And you look at the table right now, I won't even talk about XG. Let's talk about goals that we put in the net. Villa have 38. That's tied for 8th to 10th most in the league. Spurs only have scored 1 fewer goal, right? Leeds have scored 1 fewer goal. I think Brighton has 2 fewer. So those are teams like what, 15, 16, 17th or 14, 15, 16th, like nothing about Villa's entire season body of work says that they should be where they are. And hey, I'm with you. Like, results, I'll take it. Villa thus far have been the third best team in the league, but like that underlying stuff portends tough seas ahead. I think like there's nothing that you're looking there of like, oh, Villa, haven't scored for a few, but they've got 54 goals on the season. So like the goals will come. They know how to put them in. No, this is a team for the course of many months now that has shown that they aren't necessarily the most efficient or effective scorers in the league. And so you can't necessarily say that what got you here is going to be what gets you out of it. I think.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I mean, a different way of playing.
Yeah, that's I think part of the reason that I'm so high on going to Tammy Abraham now, because it'll at least change something up,
Listen, he's shown that he'll put the ball in the net.
Yep. And I think like Buendia has been too easily dispossessed in the midfield, but the problem is you're short on options there. Ross Barkley could maybe come in and play the 10 a little bit to spell Buendia and push Rogers out to the left, but I don't know.
Hasn't been fit.
He looked decent when he came in.
He looked deep, but like I'm talking about over the course of the season. Like it's not like I think that at this point we're going to expect to get 10 games in a row, 90 minutes out of Ross Barkley.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, no. Yeah.
All right, Chris. Third one. The current team is devoid of leaders, and that's their biggest issue.
I pour some cold water on it because I think the biggest issue is no goals. Yes, I agree with it though. You have John McGinn is the unquestioned leader of this team. And you and I have talked about that multiple times. And having him not out there is clearly affecting the way the team play. Maybe that's one of the reasons that Emery's gone to Mings more often, because Mings is a much more vocal leader than Pau Torres. So that this cold water may have just popped that into my head, But yes, I think that's a problem. It's absolutely a problem. When you lose a player like McGinn for a long stretch of time, and then all the players around him at the same time, again, that's like it's tough to rebound from. So yeah, I pour some cold water on it because I don't think it's the biggest problem. The biggest problem is the ball doesn't go in the back of the net. It's a symptom of the problem. Or a cause, I should say, of the problem, but it's not the biggest one. The biggest one is you're not scoring.
I do think it is a fairly big factor. You're right. I pour some cold water on it. This is what I was teasing earlier with Tyrone Mings. The second reason why I think he started. I think you need some kind of leadership out there. Pau Torres is not a leader. Who else would you kind of turn to in these games? Luka Dean certainly hasn't been up to it in terms of form, so he's not getting the start. Ian Maatsen, not a vocal guy, seems very soft-spoken. Amadou Onana is a glue guy. He's not necessarily a leadership guy, right? He's a good culture guy. He's a good vibes guy, but I don't necessarily know that he's kind of like galvanizing the team forward. Douglas Luiz, if he never left Villa, would probably be one of those guys, but it's hard to step into a locker room and in game 3 be like the unquestioned leader, actually driving them forward. Morgan Rogers, definitely not that guy. Emi Buendia, not that guy. Ollie Watkins in current form, not that guy, although I do think that at one point he was part of the leadership council. I think that's also why Leon Bailey started, because Unai Emery is looking for some kind of senior calm head to kind of keep things going. And I don't think Matty Cash is that guy either. So I think the two biggest leaders that we had before were John McGinn and Yuri Tielemans. Yuri Tielemans, I think, is captain of Belgium. And then you have Emi Martinez in the back. But I do think that is part of the reason we've gone to Tyrone Mings. So I do think that this team is largely devoid of, despite the age throughout the squad, I think it is largely devoid of leadership that is ultimately going to kind of pull the guys through it. And that is a worrying attribute that I hadn't necessarily considered before I saw this take, but it is something that I am, I won't say keeping my eye on, because I don't know how you keep your eye on leadership, but I guess I'll be cognizant of in the weeks moving forward until we get John McGinn back.
Yeah, 100%.
Actually with this one, Chris, sorry, addendum to this, or I guess further evidence to the lack of leadership. Jacob Tanswell came out with a tweet earlier today, I believe, sent it to you. It said that Unai Emery recognizes that this is not a normal Premier League. Everybody is kind of fallible around Aston Villa, and so he's trying to keep a positive mentality. And yet in the same tweet, Jacob Tanswell mentions that in the locker room after the Leeds game, there was an unnamed Villa player who expressed relief that Chelsea had ultimately dropped points to Bournemouth.
Yeah.
That to me is a loser's mentality that leadership eradicates.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've talked about that in multiple different ways. You don't worry about the other games. All you do is look at yours, nothing else. You win your game, and everything else takes care of itself.
I think after the last few years, Villa is very used to looking over their shoulder, and unfortunately, the pressure is getting to them.
Yeah.
That to me is evidence. We talk about Arsenal bottling the league with their form over the last games. Like, it's hard to not say that Villa are in that same boat of they're bottling their third place position and potentially bottling their chance at the Champions League this year.
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible.
And that comes down to mentality, I think.
Yeah.
Chris, the last one, I know you're going to pour cold water on this, but it's out there, so I'm going to say it anyway. There isn't another win on the horizon.
I mean, I have to pour cold water on it because you play Wolves next, and they're terrible. I mean, I know they're playing better than they have, but they're on 10 points. And yes, we don't play well away at Molineux and all that, but they're on 10 points. They're one of the worst teams in the history of the league, and so you can't tell me that there's not another win on the horizon when that team is the next one up.
I think that you're right. Villa are not going to go. What is there? 11 games left, something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, 11 left. 12. Whatever it is, 12, 11, 13, 10. Villa are not going to go winless for that long, right? This team is too good. They will fall into a Brighton own goal. They will figure out a way to get a couple wins. So, yeah, I'll pour a ton of cold water to say that there isn't another win on the horizon. What I won't pour cold water on is saying that I can definitively predict which game Villa are going to win. I don't necessarily know that they're even with Wolves that I'm going to sit here on Tuesday, Wednesday night and be like, yep, I definitively predict a Villa 3-1 victory.
Sure.
I can't. So I don't know. I do pour some cold water on that just for probability's sake.
Yeah.
All right. So larger implication on the season, as we just said, Chelsea drop points helps us. Liverpool get a 97th minute winner, doesn't help us. Please, Jack, do us a favor tomorrow when Everton play United. Because if they lose that, we've got an
I don't think he's healthy though. I think Grealish is out. Yeah.
He might be out. I'm just praying to the Everton gods. Maybe he can impart his skill on someone else. Please, Iliman and Jai. I don't know. Because if United win that one, Villa have an upcoming match against United in 3, right? Wolves, Chelsea, United, I think is the sequence. Third game. United will have a better goal difference. Yes, Chris, goal difference is coming back into play, and they will be exactly 3 points behind us. So, it's getting tough. It's getting tight. But we remain in third because this team was uber successful over the first half of the season, and that's all we can hang our hat on at this point. Is that ultimately we do have pole position. If we do not have pole form, as I just said, everybody's fallible. And so there will be other slip-ups from other teams along the way.
Yep, 100%.
Chris, anything else to add?
I think we're good. I think we covered it.
All right. Well, YouTube shout-outs, Black Country Villain, as always, and Big Walt. Thank you for slide tackling into those DMs. As I just teased before, we'll probably be back with a Wolves preview Tuesday or Wednesday evening. We'll see what works for Chris's work schedule and my life schedule, but we are back, and we are not going to leave you hanging for another 2-week period until the end of the season. So, Chris, as always, my friend, up the Villa.
Up the Villa.
Hi, Mom and Dad.